Let me first welcome our Madam Vice Chancellor, Professor Chandrika Vijayaratne, who joined this meeting despite a busy schedule. And as the chairperson of the University Research and Development Committee, Madam is an integral part of evaluation of research projects, and she is the ultimate authority on approval of the research grants, be it the faculty or the university research grants or external research grants. So thank you very much, Madam, spending some time to be with us at the beginning of this workshop. Then it is my pleasure to welcome Professor Vajra Dissanayaka, the Dean of our faculty. Again, Professor Vajra Dissanayaka and I represent the medical faculty in the Research and Development Committee of the University of Colombo. And therefore, we have to face the various questions that are asked on the research progress reports and the other final reports and other communications that are sent to the Research and Development Committee. And it was actually Vajra's idea to get the National Science Foundation as well as the National Research Council on board for this workshop. And I thank Professor Vajra Dissanayaka for all the support given for the activities of the Research Committee while welcoming him for this workshop this morning. It is also my pleasure to welcome all our panel of resource persons, both within our faculty as well as the external faculty, external resource persons, particularly Ms. Christine Dasanayaka from the National Science Foundation, as well as Mr. Sampath Nonis from the National Research Council, who would be sharing their experiences and their valuable inputs on research grant management from the point of an external grant funding body. And not to forget our own resource persons, Professor Dishani Dissanayaka, then the chairperson RPFC, and Dr. Professor Shamila from the who will be talking about the university research grants, and then Professor Dr. Nilakshi, who will be talking about the external grants from their experience, and then Dr. Kalumbetta Singha, our secretary of this research committee, who will be giving the requirements when you are submitting various communications to the university. And then very importantly, the senior assistant Bursa, Mrs. Himani Rajapaksha, who has to give the financial progress reports during the grant progress report submissions, who will be addressing you during this workshop. So just to give you a brief introduction as to why we organize this workshop. Now, the research committee of the faculty is responsible for monitoring, or rather than monitoring actually, for forwarding the research, the progress reports, the final reports, as well as any other communications that are sent to the university pertaining to the research grants obtained by faculty staff members, be it university research grants or even external research grants, which has to be approved by the particularly final granting authority will be the Vice Chancellor. So I think Madam has to face various queries, particularly audit queries pertaining to university grants, and then other queries that are made by the external granting bodies. And these issues are discussed at the University Research and Development Committee. So therefore, all the research grant communications which go to the university finally get discussed at the Research and Development Committee in detail. And all the progress reports that you submit are put into the minutes, and then all the members of the Research and Development Committee see those minutes. And then when there are various issues, various deficiencies, those are questioned by other members. So we therefore come across various problems, such as there may not be, sometimes the Gantt charts are there, but it's empty, it's not filled, and sometimes there may not be the financial progress reports, and then the publications may not be there. So various comments and questions are raised. So as a result, then I think now the university has put in place for all the communications pertaining to research grants to go through the individual faculty research committee, so that there is some vetting taking place, and then to forward them to university with the recommendations of the research committee. Therefore, now the research committee has the responsibility of reviewing all the communications that are sent to the university before they are forwarded to the university. And so we go through whether those have been all the necessary information and data that is required by the university are there in the progress, whatever the communications that are submitted. So therefore, our committee, we have decided our committee consists of several, I think there are members from almost all departments in the faculty, and we now regularly meet once a month. And our regular date of meeting is we have decided to meet in the third week of the month. We are meeting on the fourth week of the month. And in order for us to take all the reports or communications that are submitted, we have decided to request all academic staff members to send any communications that need to be forwarded to the university by the third Friday of every month, so that we can take it up in our meeting on the following Tuesday. So we will take up the all the progress reports, final reports, reallocation of funding, and then extension of funding, those requests, and we discuss those in our research committee. And if there are any deficiencies, we identify those, and we get back to the individual researchers and request them to send whatever that is missing. So we have some few days for the researchers to get back to us by the end of the last week, because we have to send the whatever the reports to be included into the agenda of the University Research and Development Committee, which is held on the second Tuesday of every month. So that if you send the reports in time only, we can forward them to the university in time. So we thought we will have this workshop. One is to, research grant management is an important topic, and I think research is a very important aspect of the university, which is an integral part of any academic, and it helps the university to get into the university ranking. And I think now we are moving up in the ranking ladder. Madam Chandrika Vijayaratne has done a lot of work in getting the university research projects visible by getting these publications and the Google Scholar accounts of every academic staff member to be made public, those requests. So a lot of work we have to do as individuals in the academic community, as well as we have responsibility as members of the research committee to ensure that these research grants are progressed properly, so that that will result in less problems for the university system, less audit queries, and effective outputs, particularly in terms of publications. And I think Madam has been informing not only the publications, but also the other outputs like the contribution to the society or any patents coming out from those. So those are also important aspects, important outcomes from the research grants, research projects, particularly which are funded by university as well as external grants. So therefore, those are the things that we would like to highlight, and you would hear from the presentations that will be made during this workshop today. We were actually trying to organize this workshop for some time. We were trying to have it on site so that we can have a discussion with the members, but I think in the current circumstances, I think we had to be mindful of the safety of everybody before everything else. And I think Zoom platform and online platforms can be used very effectively, I think, without losing any of the any of the important aspects of discussion now taking place even via Zoom platform. So we have a discussion session at the end of all the presentations, and send your comments or questions through the chat forum as well, and we will take up all those during the discussion session. So before concluding my remarks, I also would like to highlight some of the other few other things that are apart from evaluating the communications sent by research grantees to the university. We also handle all the research allowance requests that are sent to the university. So the research committee has the responsibility of recommending those. So we go through that as well. And then I think two other things which probably people are not very aware of are the request for approval of funding, approval of payments for research publications. The university gives a maximum of $500 for publications in high impact journals, particularly journals published in science citation index journals, because there are now a lot of there's a lot of discussion about the predatory journals, which are charging a lot, but which are not peer reviewed. So those will not be considered, but the publications which are published in high impact journals, will, if there is a payment required, that is considered by the Research and Development Committee for payment of the publication charges. And then, of course, the other thing that other support that was given by the university for research was support for attending conferences, which of course is in this current pandemic, people are not traveling, but if there are any requests for online registrations, those are also considered by the Research and Development Committee, and if considered appropriate, those are considered for funding, of course considering the financial constraints that are there in the university, as overall in the country at present. So without much ado, I would like to now start with the proper proceedings of the workshop. I think next address is by Professor Vajra Dissanayake, Dean of the Faculty. So I would like to welcome all of you once again, and particularly all the academic staff members who have joined this workshop. Please follow this carefully, and particularly I hope and I expect all grant holders to be to join with this workshop, so that we don't have to be telling each and every time these are the things that are lacking. So we hope to see an improvement of the reports that are submitted to the research committee for forwarding to the university with our recommendations without any issues. Thank you very much for joining. Please get the maximum work use from this workshop that we have organized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. I would now like to invite the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo, Vidyajyothi, Professor Vajra Dissanayake, to deliver his address.
Good morning, everybody. Vice Chancellor, Senior Chairperson of the Research Committee, Secretary of the Research Committee, Dr. Colombo, my dear colleagues, distinguished invitees, invited resource persons from the National Science Foundation and the national researchers. I see some of the young researchers as well, research assistants, and non-academic staff members who are supporting. I would like to begin by thanking the research committee for having taken aboard the suggestion that I made to start or conduct all our researchers, I would say, on the same page as it were, when it comes to organizing and conducting research. As we know, lots of us, if we go back to the past, started doing our research on our own through our sheer interest and faced a lot of challenges along the way. Today, more and more of our young academics are getting into research. And the availability of funding is also increasing. Especially the small research grants are available to more people than ever before. As a result of that, there is, I should say, research happening everywhere. Now that is very good. That is what we should encourage. But however, as we go on, we've got to manage that research enterprise, and for that there has to be capacity development beyond writing research proposals, writing grant applications, getting those grant applications and research proposals approved, then ethics approval, and so on, to actually conducting research and managing that research enterprise. I also see, because of the widespread conduct of research, more and more of our young academics are getting their promotions also earlier than before. So during the past year alone, we had more than 20 of our young academics moving on and becoming professors. So they will bring in more and more research grants to the faculty. They would be inclined to conduct more and more research. There will be research assistants, research students coming into the faculty. So the future for research in our faculty looks very good. However, we've got to ensure that the processes are in place, the checks and balances are in place, and that we conduct research conforming to the highest standards. And we see that as research, we get grants from organizations such as the National Institute of Health in the USA, as well as I know there are some grants in the pipeline from Wellcome Trust and so on. And when these grants come, we need to really operate at a high level of research, and we need to look at aspects like research integrity, managing research funds in a transparent way, managing conflicts of interests, and so on. So the days of the individual researchers struggling to do research are gone. We need to create that, that atmosphere within the faculty, the mechanisms within the faculty to support everyone and ensure that those mechanisms are in place. So that is the reason why I wanted the research committee to start this series of workshops. I'm sure this is not going to be the first workshop. We will today deal with the pressing aspects, some of which Priyadarshini mentioned in her talk. But we would like to see, as we go on, going beyond these nitty-gritty day-to-day micromanagement aspects, from moving from those to dealing with the broader issues that will elevate the research conducted in this faculty and the university to a higher level, and that would, of course, as Priyadarshini mentioned, turn into better rankings for the university, as well as better prospects for all of us who are doing research in this faculty. So with those words, let me once again thank all those who took their time off to talk with, be with this workshop today. And I hope that all of you would benefit from this workshop. And may I also take this opportunity to thank Professor Chandrika Vijayaratne for taking time off from her busy schedule to be with us this morning and to share her thoughts with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We are honored that Professor Chandrika Vijayaratna, Vice Chancellor, University of Colombo, is present with us today for the workshop. I would like to cordially invite you to address the gathering next, Madam.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Vajira Dissanayake, Professor Priyadarshini Galapathe, and the organizing team for encouraging all your researchers and encouraging me as one of the members of this faculty, although at the moment I'm in the hot seat of trying to steer the entire university in the field of research. So may I at the outset wish you all a very good morning. Welcome all our guest speakers, as well as appreciate the fact that the Faculty of Medicine, which is the pioneering faculty of the University of Colombo, is also the leader in terms of research projects, research funding that has been obtained, the research output, and also particularly funding coming from highly prestigious, well-recognized international bodies. So at this point, I would really like to pay tribute to some of my teachers, particularly leaders of our university, in the name of, like the names of Professor Nandadas Kodagoda, S.R. Kotegoda, Professor Ismail, and Professor Fernando from within our faculty, as well as Professor Varuguna, from whom I learned a huge amount about what Dean mentioned, research management. It was not spelled out like the way it is in this workshop, but things that we picked up over the years. And I thought this was a wonderful moment, Vajira and Priyadarshini, for me also to just jot down some of those memories, which I can see have such a huge bearing. I would also like to mention that the medical faculty is maybe the leader, I would say, nationally and regionally in research ethics. As well as which was led by Professor Nalaka Mendis, I remember, and Professor Saroj Jayasinghe at the beginning, as well as the community medicine department, which has taken on a lot of components of research, including student research. And therefore, if our university should really move on to from being a teaching university to from knowledge transfer to knowledge creation university, this is one of the main hubs. So no doubt, when we did an audit of the number of projects that are running, some are research, some are more towards advocacy and other components, making use of your niche areas. The external funding comes massively compared to the internal treasury funded, what Dean mentioned, such as small grants and a couple of large grants that have been awarded over time. I also noted that your faculty, our faculty, has research committee, research and higher degrees, and research RPFC, right? Is that what it is?
Yes.
The third one?
Yes.
Yes. So I think the fact that there are three components looking into aspects related to research also has to be appreciated, but they need to also be streamlined from the way I see it, from a user's point of view, particularly the young ones who have joined us. Now, in terms of why the Research and Development Committee, which is one of those statutory committees of the university that feeds into the Senate and Management Committee and Council, we meet monthly, and it's the same academic publications that oversees, but we realized that in terms of the quantum of the activities that are going on, some might have gone into attrition, we do not know. Some we don't have all the data. We need to be knowing where we can help you, as well as how we can actually capture the wonderful findings you all have, right? Because so that is one aspect from a centralized capacity, that we would like to be data driven in terms of be it our annual reports, be it showcasing our university, or even getting further funds, linking up with regional and international experts, because the sky is the limit when it comes to research. So if we please do not think that this is only for ranking, only because we want to satisfy the auditors. But we need to satisfy the auditors because we're a public institute and the National Audit Act is applicable to us and we are answerable to Parliament in terms of finances and our general management. So let us fall in line, and that's why we need the administrators and the financial officers side by side in all our activities. Like what Dean said, we have to become enterprise managers. We have to treat this like an enterprise and we learn in that whole process as well. But as was noted, we need to have capacity building. And also, I believe, Professor Vajira and Professor Priyadarshini, that the administrators and finance managers should do their job. And the academics should really have to be able to concentrate and put their mind to their research rather than being preoccupied with paperwork. So that is where I believe that the administration of the university, that is, be it registrar at the central level and an assigned officer, and at the faculty level, the deputy registrar and or an assigned officer should be leading the way, giving the training to those chosen MAs, CAs of maybe at your department level, unit level, center level, and to have that kind of an overall picture plus a specific picture as to knowing what is our annual calendar, what has to be done, and those girls and boys should be able to say, if you want to do some activity, say maybe a field visit or whatever, what has to be done, the steps like in a SOP, and they should be able to do it in-house rather than it being last moment knee-jerk reactions, which leads to a lot of negativism at many levels, which then, you know, we are preoccupied with that rather than our research. The second is, please note that the Research Development Center, which is sort of linked to the R&D, and the Research Development Center has within it actually the chairpersons of the research committees. And they drew up a research policy. I hope you all have read through it. It may not be perfect, but it was after much deliberation and after about almost a year of discussion and reviews and re-reviews. It's there in all 3 languages on our website and having been tabled at Senate and Council. Then we have the research ethics. We have some aspect of research integrity, although we do not have a research integrity officer as such, which ideally we should have. And we also have research training and the RPFC, etc. helps you all, as well as technical trainings that will be needed for those who are particularly lab-based. So please also remember and factor in the university business linkage cell. And you all, I think every faculty has a focal point, and it's not every research that ends up with a patent and a commercialization potential, but don't lose out on it. And we need to gather that data as well, because those are our key performance indices from a strategic point of view. The second thing is about international collaboration. There is this painful procedure of MOUs. I have to be very honest with you. It is extremely painful because the international donors get very, very uptight because of our time scheduling and everything, which is well beyond the control of this university. We have made representation multiple times on behalf of specific projects, as well as gathering the data and showing the bottlenecks. But each one has certain aspects, and we need to be mindful of that and warn our donors. And that's why we have worked out a system of signing letters of intent. If we are having research links with institutions like the Indian Institute of Science, etc., and the high-ranking institutions, we have signed LOIs pending the MOUs, even Cornell University, which we are doing for agriculture. I know NIH is there, and NIH has also spoken to me and said, don't you all have monitoring and evaluation? So that is why I think we need to appreciate that at faculty level and with the central support, we need to have at least a quarterly review at the faculty level, not only about finances, but about the progress, what have been the output, what have been the challenges, and any milestones if they are behind schedule, how we can help. right? So it's entirely with a proactive point of view. And also the fact that SOPs, standard operating procedures, should be followed. So I think, Dean, you are addressing that, and the senior assistant Bursa has to give up her time and also help whoever the CAA or MA at the faculty department level who will be helping the main PIs of the research projects. Thirdly, I would also like to talk about research dissemination, the outputs. It's not just the publications, you need to make your findings visible. And I must say, those need some organization, organized process within, in whichever method, maybe through their websites, and also we have now appointed a university publicity center through the journalism unit led by Professor Samantha Hera. So you can, engage with the media in that respect. Also, there is an MOU signed by the UGC with the Parliament of Sri Lanka, where any of your findings that have made very meaningful data to support policy change should be forwarded through the research committee so that we send it on a semi-annual or quarterly basis to Parliament. It's not piecemeal, it should be sort of, really entered even into our annual reports. The third aspect that about research publication is the library, because the library knows and can help a lot in capacity in terms of not only literature reviews and searches, but also plagiarism checks, which we must get that into our culture. We invested $24,500 on Turnitin, which is just the annual payment. So, these things are nothing is cheap, and therefore try to make the best out of it. And your senior assistant librarian would be able to help you in as much as the journal and publishers to avoid falling into the trap of predatory journals. Many of us can fall into those traps. So we have to be very mindful and get those supports. So I know that the Faculty of Medicine has a center that is the CCT, Combating Tobacco and Alcohol. We also have, is it centers in the community medicine department for public health? Is it a center or a unit, Vajra? Like the genetics unit, isn't there something to do with research in the community medicine department? Hello?
Madam, I think there's a WHO collaborating center for occupational health. Occupational health.
Yeah, so precisely, but those those collaborating centers being identified as niche areas is something that we need to publicize to the rest of the country and the university system. And also to be mindful of the fact that we need to have the data to get even more and more partnerships in time to come. One other aspect, which is, I think, linked to ethics, and also the National Health Research Council of the Ministry of Health, which is relevant to all the STEMS programs, is biomaterials and material transfer agreements, which we need to discuss further and get our systems right. So I think, remember, we are always there to support you, to clarify, and if you have these issues which are more specific, please feel free to transfer those questions, not only at this workshop, but on a regular basis with the related areas, these focal points, and also to be mindful of, as Dean said, about student research, the research assistants, and also we have now capacity we have actually approved postdoc positions at a reasonable rate. At least for IBMB, they have 3 positions. So like that, I'm sure the medical faculty also could go for a couple of postdocs, which will help in full-time researchers taking on to upgrade and upscale our research. So thank you so much. and all the very best.
Thank you very much, Madam. We will now move on to the first in the series of lectures today. I would like to request all participants to keep your microphones muted throughout the session. Please use the Zoom chat box feature to post your queries to the lecturers. We will be discussing your queries at the question and answer session at the end of the workshop. The first lecture is on submission of progress reports and final, and it will be delivered by Dr. Colombo Singha, Secretary, Research Committee. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, Akalanka. Good morning. Today, I would like to talk about the submission of progress reports and final reports. Why do we talk of this topic? By receiving and accepting a grant, investigators are committing to meet all the associated requirements, including the submission of online progress reports and final reports. Failure to do so may lead to audit findings, delay in award processing, withholding of funds, and research projects not being completed on time, and the inability to apply for new grants until you close the current grant, and returning of reports, and incomplete reports are minuted at the Research and Development Committee of the university, which affects the good name of the investigators and the faculty. If you fail to achieve the proposed project objectives, it may lead to you paying back the utilized money. What is the purpose of the progress report? The progress report ensures you reach your goals. It helps you make informed decisions and justify any changes, and reassure that the project will complete by the expected date. It provides a brief look at the outcomes of the project and gives a chance for you to evaluate your work and foresee any challenges. It drives you to complete the project on time and gives you a sense of professionalism. Why do funding bodies require progress reports? The progress reports are used by the funding organizations to determine the details such as what sub-goals you have accomplished, what resources you have expended, what problems you have encountered, and whether the project is expected to be completed on time and within the budget. When submitting a progress report, your grant contract will specify whether you need to submit a progress report once or twice a year. A progress report must include the activities that have been carried out and the results achieved under the project since the previous report. The timing of the progress report is very important. Small research grants are up to 3 months to 1 year. 1-year grants require a biannual progress report to the University Research and Development Committee through the Faculty Research Committee. Grants of less than 1 year requires a detailed final report at the end of the grant period. For collaborative research grants, which leads to research leading to doctoral level research degrees. For senior researchers, up to 1 million Sri Lankan rupees. is awarded as an annual cost for a period of no more than 3 years. For other academics, up to 500,000 Sri Lankan rupees is awarded as annual cost for a period of no more than 3 years. A biannual progress report with a financial statement issued by the Bursa of the faculty should be submitted to the Research and Development Committee of the University through the Research Committee of the faculty. The progress report format should be available online very soon, which you can download. It should not exceed more than 2 A4 pages, exclusive of the list of publications. The report should follow the outline and numbering system shown below. The name of the grant holder, grant number, research title, department, the faculty, and the period of evaluation. The subheadings. Under the subheadings, you have a brief description of the research carried out during the reporting period, the results, the outcomes, where you can include all the publications and the communications, and the difficulties if you have encountered any. An activity plan that includes a Gantt chart and the contribution to the web of the University of Colombo, and a financial report from the SAB. When submitting the final reports, a final report must include the activities that have been carried out and the results achieved over the entire period of the project, and whether the project has achieved the objectives set out in the grant proposal. The final report must be submitted at least 1 month after the project has been completed. The final report format, you have to have the summary of the investigator, the name of the principal investigator, department, title of the project, duration, project start date, project end date, total funds received, and funds utilized up to a certain date. When you are submitting the progress report or the final report, you have to submit it to the chairperson, research committee, through the head of the department, and through the dean of the Faculty of Medicine, on or before the third Friday of the month, and the reports with amendments indicated by the research committee should be resubmitted before the 4th Friday of the month. Any recommendations will be submitted in the first week of the following month to be included in the agenda of the University Research and Development Committee, which is going to be held on the 2nd Tuesday of the month. These are the common problems that we note at the research committee. Absence of Gantt chart and no progress indicated in progress reports. No publications or communications attached. No financial statements from Bursa attached. Not using the correct template. And requests for budget reallocation in the same progress report. The project start date and the end date is vital and essential in the final reports. The reverting balance funds to the university is not stated in the final reports, and not using the correct template, and also requesting for extensions in the final report, requesting for utilizing the balance in the final report. And also not submitting timely reports is a big problem. Incomplete requests for reallocation of funds is where there is no table indicating the initial allocation and the requested reallocation. And there is no justification given. And in incomplete applications for extensions, there's no justification, no project end date, and there's no Gantt chart. So we find it very difficult to process and forward and recommend these applications or requests to the University Research and Development Committee. Therefore, we have to call back the investigator and request for resubmission. When you're submitting reports or requests, a soft copy of the report or request, including a scanned copy of the financial statement from the Bursa Faculty of Medicine, should be emailed to the Secretary Research Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that excellent presentation. Next, I would like to invite Mrs. Himani Rajapaksha, Senior Assistant Bursa, Faculty of Medicine, Colombo, to shed some light on the topic of financial reports and fund reallocation, requirements from researchers. Over to you, Madam.
You are here for reasons. What is to get an idea about the requirements of researchers in financial reporting and reallocation of research grant. So, what is finance management? If it is whatsoever the source of fund, if it comes to the Sri Lankan government or the university, we have to utilize that funds effectively and efficiently. It called that consolidated funds, and we are accountable for that consolidated funds. As Faculty of Medicine, there are many grants, foreign funded grants, as well as local funded grants. From as local funding agencies give their grants like NSF, NCAS, and UGC. Also, the university give grants, many grants, collaborative research grants and small research grants, etc. So procedures and requirements are different from each grant to grant. University of Colombo and the Medical Faculty of University of Colombo is handling total 67 grants, foreign funded, UGC and university grants, altogether 67 grants. So I'd like to turn to the foreign grants. As Madam Vice Chancellor said, it took long period and approval because we have to get an prior approval. It is essential and there are guidelines to follow. And it's end up with cabinet approval. So it take long time to get foreign funded grants. When it comes to the university grants, as Dr. Callum expressed, we have to submit the proposal. Once the academic and publication branch call the application based on the availability of funds, then we have to submit the proposal through the faculty research committee. Then the proposal evaluated by the evaluation committee, and finally end up with the awarding procedure. Researchers must concentrate on financial regulations. Main thing is we have to obtain the finance committee approval for the budget before start the research or the grant. It's mandatory. The other regulations, as universities govern under the government financial regulations. So there are 4 financial functions: authorization, approval, certification, and pass for payment. So annually, University of Colombo issues a finance circular delegating authorities for these 4 financial functions. When it comes to the authorization, before commission the supplies or work or service, we have to get authorization to do that. Approval in the sense, when we make the on completion of the work or the service or the supplies, we have to obtain approval to make the payment. And the certification and pass for payment is doing by the financial officers of the university. Also, we have to get an idea about petty cash. Petty cash, of course, the grants also can obtain, but we have to get approval from the finance committee. The limit is rupees 25,000, and end of the year we have to settle the petty cash, and time to time we can reimburse the petty cash. Take a look at advances. There are many types of advances: research advance and miscellaneous advance, repair advance, supplies advance, as well as when it comes to the constructions, we have mobilization advance too. So we are paying cash advance as well as check advance. So when or what type of requirements, if you have as a researcher, you may have a field visit, so you can get an advance for field visit, or the conference or the workshop, and some for miscellaneous you can obtain advances. And here we have to more concern about the approval limits and the advance limits. So approval limits, as example, the dean can only approve the 50,000 advance if it is a research advance or the miscellaneous advance. If it is a repair advance, then 15,000. More than that, we have to go to the Vice Chancellor. The advance maximum limit is for the cash advance is rupees 100,000. The main thing is requirement from researchers. When requesting an advance, we as a financial officers, or we need the estimate with the requirement, with the request. Why should we have a estimate? It should, and why it should be an accurate. Why it should be an accurate? The overestimate and underestimate will be a problem when it's come to the audit queries and all. So we have to have the accurate advance by estimate. And also when we need the declaration for settlement, you have to declare the settlement date within 14 days, within 10 days, after the completion of work, like that. You have to mention the declaration on the advance request. And other thing, the eligible persons are permanent academic staff or administration staff or the financial staff who can obtain the advances. Also, one person can obtain 2 advances at a time. If you need another advance, you have to settle the advance what you taken already for request another advance. So why these regulations and policies there to control the finance, and these are not our money, the funds or the grants received to any donor, but these are the funds, the government funds. So we have to adhere the rules and regulations. So we cannot keep unwantedly the money with us. When it's the settling in advance, all the bills should submit, and this bill should certified by the principal investigator. And if any purchases, consumables or sometimes maybe consumable items or the small assets, sometimes you are purchasing for the research purpose. So those everything you have to inventorize, and inventory folio number should mention in the bills, and you have to settle the advance within the given period. Let us come to the next most important thing, the inventory control. We have to have separate registers for fixed assets and consumables. Fixed assets, sometimes the donor requirement is differ. That means they ask to get it to our records after the completion of grants. In that sense, we have to take it after the period of the grant. If not, we have to get into the department asset register, and we have to mention the identification FAR number on the each and every assets, and we have to maintain the serial order for these asset which person purchased. Also, when it comes to the payments, have to send the invoices with mentioning the FAR number and with updated FAR sheets to the accounts branch. When it comes to the consumables and chemicals, we have to keep separate registers for grants as well as treasury fund purchases. In that sense, when you are request for any chemicals or the consumables, have to send through the inventory clerk, because she has records what are the available balance and what are the needs of the actual requirement with the updated request. And every year, as usual, we have to do the board of survey for fixed asset and chemical. So the record keeping in fixed assets and chemicals is very important. Also, as a finance division, we have responsibility for the smooth functioning of the research. We have to open a ledger account, and we have to have a separate register for each grant and separate file for each grant to keep all the records. And we have to update income and expenditure. Also, at the request, we have to submit the financial reports to the donor agency or the project investigator. And also, our responsibility is to guide and update about the financial regulations and procedures about to the researchers or the principal investigators. And we have to procure requested items in timely manner. Most important is requirement from researchers. So every agreement or the MOUs should sign by the Vice Chancellor, and Finance Committee approval should be obtained before utilize the grant. No any payment without the approved budget. We are not making the payment. So it is mandatory to, as I mentioned earlier, it is mandatory to get an Finance Committee approval for the budget to utilize the grant. And also providing all the relevant documents to the finance branch also very important. We need the budget, and if any agreement or MOU, and personal appointments and duty assumptions of RAs or the any subordinates hired for the grant. And also special requirements, if any, should inform the report submission dates, special policies to adhere as such. And all expenditure should align with the budget line items. And all the funds should be credit to the university accounts. We cannot keep separate accounts, individual accounts. All the grants should, it's mandatory statutory requirement, and the contributions to the university administration and development also there. The other main thing is, if any changes, amendments to the approved budget, Finance Committee approval should be obtained to the revised budget. With all the requirements, we have to submit the revised budget to the Finance Committee. If with the variation, if we can submit with the variation report, it would be a great thing. And the record keeping by the grantee or the researcher is also essential. They have to keep the income and expenditure records, as well as acquisition of capital assets and consumable inventorization should keep. If any other than that, you can keep the airfare expenditure or some other special things. Also, you have to have a record with yours. And then adhere to the financial regulation of university and donor agency is the main component. As I mentioned earlier, how to get the petty cash, how to utilize the petty cash, how to utilize the advances, when you can request advance, and the procurement guidelines. What I said is, there is a separate advance request format for university grants. So we have to have an idea about those things. And certified copies of all the bills should be submitted to the UGC with the progress report. Like if it is a UGC grant, we have to submit all the bills with all the certified bills with the progress report. So those are the requirements. So to fulfill those requirements, it is better to keep record keeping properly. Also, personal appointments should be done according to the university regulation, and the appointment letters of RAs should be provided to the finance division, and the duty assumptions letters too. Request to purchase assets or the consumables should be sent to the finance branch with the correct specification, and for some we need a correct specification. If the researcher need exactly to fulfill their research, so we need the correct specification. Otherwise the wrong asset or the consumable reagents will come to the usage. Request for the financial report should send 3 days prior to the required date, because we need time to reconcile with the ledger and the register. So we need 3 days prior to the required date, and report will be issued at the request of the grantee. All the vouchers for payment should send through the heads and dean's recommendation to the finance division by mentioning grant number and the budget line. This would be easy for keep records, and when preparing final reports, we can in line with the budget lines. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that very informative presentation. The next talk we have lined up is problems faced by grant holders, the expectations and requirements. This will be delivered by Professor Shamila Jayasena. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you. Okay, so the topic given to me is problems faced by grant holders, expectations and requirements. I was wondering why this was given to me, and I realized probably because I gave the most trouble to the research committee with all the problems I had with my grant. So the grant process. So I'm going to talk specifically about the collaborative research grants. These are 3-year grants. And so once you get a grant, there's a lot of administrative work that happens in the first 6 months. We have to recruit a research assistant very quickly. And within 3 months, the research assistant must register for an MPhil leading to a PhD. And at the end of the first 6 months, there should be the first progress report. And in the subsequent 2.5 years is when most of the project gets done, and you are supposed to submit progress reports every 6 months, and then the final report. So in my case, I got the grant in 2014, and my 3 years finished in 2020. So yeah, I've put some faces to show the kind of emotions that the grant holder as well as the student goes through when you're going through this research project. And I think for a PhD student, most of these emotions are correct. One does not just get your PhD. You have to go through a lot of difficult periods invariably before it happens. So just to go over what happened. So initially, I think in that first 6 months and continuing into the later period also, there are delays in obtaining chemicals and equipment. And that affects you in the initial period, because like in my case, I got the grant. It was like a first grant in a long time. So I didn't have chemicals to work with until I got this stuff kind of thing. So I had to wait for material to arrive before I could really get going on the project. So when it's like that, it's a bit more difficult. And you get a little depressed because invariably it takes about you can get any equipment for the chemical start coming. So the initial progress report doesn't really have much progress, but I think everybody knows that, so it's not frowned upon. But in the subsequent period, for me, the project did not go as expected. And this was where a lot of things went wrong. Yes, so some of the things that happen is you have to register the student for a degree within 3 months. And I managed to do that, well, not exactly 3 months, but soon, quite soon after that. And these are the other issues and things that I'm going to discuss in the context of the problems I had. So if I would just go on. Right, so the registration of the student for the degree, one thing we need to bear in mind is that the contract for a PhD, although we might register the student initially for an MPhil, the contract is for a PhD, as I found out. So we need to ensure the suitability of the candidate to go on to a PhD. And you have to do that within this very short time periods. That can be a problem sometimes. So some things we can do is to try to identify students and give them some kind of training internship where you can check them out to see whether they can cope with the kind of work and things like that. But that was, yeah, I felt that was a bit of, there can be a problem if you don't know the student from before. And the other thing I thought I should bring up here is the faculty in which you register for the degree. It is not stipulated. And I think nobody realized for a long time that my student was actually registered in the science faculty. So as to why I did this is because in 2014, I felt that because my project was not really a medical project, I thought there would be a lot of issues when it goes to our RHDC, and it, you know, people may not quite understand why I'm doing this, and there are a lot of questions going back and forth. So I thought, if I just take this to the science faculty, it'll make life a lot easier. So this is the absolute, I'm telling the truth here. Okay, that was my reason. And then there was also the fact that every project has to go through ethics clearance, and that irritated me a little bit because I was in the ethics committee and I knew that my project didn't have any ethical issues because it was a microbiology based project. And now, this wasn't the issue at when I started the project, but now it is an issue of the registration fee. The Colombo Medical Faculty, it's I think 700,000 rupees, whereas in the science faculty it's about 100,000 rupees or something there. And even people who criticize me sending my student to the science faculty are now sending their students to the science faculty because the student says, I cannot afford to pay it. And unless you have something like the AHEAD grant where you have got about 30 million rupees, with 3 million rupees, you cannot accommodate the registration fee within the grant. And the student sees this. I think it's also partially to the way it has been put forward, because the students are saying, I can't pay 700,000 rupees. So I think this is maybe something we need to reevaluate. So I don't know whether there's anyone from the RHDC here, but you know, I feel that if you give it as an annual fee, it may not hit them so bad, but still, I think it needs to be comparable, ideally across the university system, or at least, you know, between the medical and the science faculty, because now we are going to see a flow of students going in to the science faculty. And I hope that the response to that will not be, you know, a restriction saying if you get a grant, you have to register the student here, because who is going to pay for it? You know, then we are going to start feeling, okay, if you get a grant, I have to find the 700,000 rupees because I will not get students. We will get to a point where we won't have students because most of them are not able to, you know, pay this money, or they're reluctant and they see it as, you know, 700,000 rupees to get your PhD. I don't know why that is, because they do pay something closer than that, close to that to get an MSc. But when it comes to a PhD, they are reluctant. They're older. Most of them are, you know, they don't want to ask their parents for the money. So there are personal issues like that as well. So I'm leaving this for as a question for the RHDC to handle. So as far as my project was concerned, so there were a lot of experimental setbacks that we faced. And let me get the, sorry, I can't find this. Okay, I don't know whether you can see my cursor here. So some of the issues were inherent in the project itself and sheer bad luck, but some of it was perhaps the student was not really good, didn't have the hands to do molecular biology. I felt that then. I'm still not convinced that I was completely wrong there. So these are some of the things. So we had difficulty in identifying the microbes in the sense that the regular methods, the regular molecular methods were insufficient to really differentiate them. So we would have had to go for even more complicated more complex methods to differentiate them, and it didn't work. You know, we tried several methods and we still could not differentiate them. So we have a situation where I'm just identifying them at genus level. Then, yes, the common thing, the instrument issues. I was trying to do gas chromatography. We went from the science faculty to the IFS and IFS, and yeah, it didn't work. The instrument broke at NIFS. And then finally, I had to move to Sri Jawadanapura University Chemistry Department, where I'm collaborating now to get that work done. So yeah, and then when it came to amplifying the gene, we had partial amplification. It wasn't getting completed, and the cloning just did not work for her. So I was going through the funds, you know, in all that time you repeat the project. We were running through the funds, so there were delays in the progress, and then the shortage of funds, and the consequent student issues, her mental status. So yeah. So one of the areas where I felt I failed in designing this project was where I had this project where there's a dependency on the success of one component in order to progress into the next component. So this, I think, is not a good thing. And I have given some advice there. So I think when we design a project, and I will definitely look into this when I design another project, is where we will have components which are not totally dependent on each other, so that if one aspect is not working, at least the student can put it aside for a while and we'll have something else that they can focus on. So from the student's point of view, there is something working. Now that I struggled in that area, and that was partly in my fault of mine, I would say. So I couldn't do anything about that. So what I did in the end was basically therapeutic. I modified some of the objectives when we found that certain things were taking too long. And because the cloning part didn't work, I actually replaced some of those objectives. I decided, okay, we're not going to go with that. I couldn't because I had no more funds left to buy another kit. But I had to ensure there's enough quantum of work for a PhD. So I came up with asking her to do computational analysis, which I thought, okay, we can do this. It won't cost me money. And it turned out to be the best thing I did for her, because she really took, she has done a lot of work and she's got some good results from that work. So some of the other things that I did was reallocating the funding. So some of the equipment, it turned out to be more expensive when it came to actually trying to purchase it. And I collaborated with, well, not collaborated. I got the Moratua students. I think they were students through one of our postgraduates who had friends at Moratua Engineering Factory. And they actually constructed an incubator for me, a shaking incubator. So for half the price. So I had some money left over from equipment, which I was able to transfer to the chemicals, which helped me in my attempts to do this work. And of course, there were extensions, multiple extensions, which I had to request, which were granted. But yeah, we try to keep as much as possible to keep the progress reports going on time, although sometimes they did get delayed. But I used to really, you know, this is something I used to tell my students, you have to send the progress report every late. It was still for that particular 6 months. And one thing I did was I told her, okay, break down your objectives and continue your progress based on those same objectives, so that anyone wants to follow can follow it. Otherwise, you write a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And if you try to compare the progress from the previous progress reports, the other person cannot understand it. So that is not a good way of writing a progress report. We should stick to our, broken down the objectives, which I had broken down to multiple segments. And I used to continue based on those little subtitles so that anyone can follow through and understand what is happening in the project. So I think this was already discussed. The communication has to go finally to the Research and Development Committee in the university. So through the head of department to the Faculty Research Committee, and they will forward it to the University Research and Development Committee. So for any request, fund allocation, extensions, progress reports, everything has to go in this order. So student issues. So this was another thing that I faced because the project was not moving. And I felt there was the fact that the progress, in my opinion, was inadequate for upgrading to a PhD, because I wasn't sure whether after upgrading, whether she will be able to do the PhD. I was having those doubts in my own head. And the research setbacks were affecting the mental state of the student. And she wanted to exit for an MPhil, through with an MPhil. And there was a time I was wondering whether, that might be what needs to happen. So I went and made some inquiries, got some advice from Prof. Nadir also at the time. And what I found out was, no, you can't just let her go with an MPhil because you have a contract for a PhD outcome. And that is what the grant is awarded for. So there is a, the university has its own agenda of trying to produce PhDs. So you have a 3 million grant and you have an obligation to put out a PhD. So it is at this point that I came up with the bioinformatics portion for the project, which in the end turned out to be all right. So there were delays in upgrading to a PhD. And so because I was not sure whether she will actually do the PhD, at that point, I halted her stipend. After the 2 years and 9 months, I thought, now if she doesn't go out for a PhD, and I have paid her for that month of time, there will be other financial issues. So I stopped her payment, and then I restarted it after she was upgraded. And but then I was told you can't pay beyond that 3 years. The payments are from her time of recruitment up to 3 years. But what I should have done is pay as back payment in lieu of the month that I didn't pay. It should have been written like that, but I didn't realize it. And I paid it in other ways. I got it back to her by, she went for a conference. I managed to get that money reimbursed and tried as much as possible to get that amount of money paid back to her in different ways. But yeah, so if you do stop this, I'm putting this up so that anyone can understand how you have to do it. You have to say for that month that you didn't pay and pay it back, right? So you can't just continue to pay it from in that time itself. Right, so now this is not something that happened to me, but I thought I should bring this up, where the student does not submit the thesis. What will happen? I think there are cases where the students have left and gone abroad and things like that. So my student is actually writing her thesis right now. But I feel that the grantee should not be penalized, because at this point it is out of our hands. We can't do anything if the student gets a job and goes abroad or something happens, and somehow this PhD is not awarded because the student does not write the thesis. As a grantee, we should not be penalized for it, because we can't, there is a problem. Even if you recruit another student, you can get the work done, but then how do you write a thesis? one person can't write the thesis out of work that was done by the previous student who left. So these are issues that I think, the research committee maybe need to discuss and figure out how to do. So I did submit the final report, but again, I thought I'd just bring this up because at one time we were talking about a no-cost extension where you have completed the financial aspect of it, but the grant is not considered complete until the thesis is submitted. And I highlighted this also at the time to the research committee because the other faculty is there submitting the final report is submitted, because until that is submitted, you are not eligible to get another grant, right? So this is why, again, I feel that that is a part that is in the hands of a student, and the grantee should not be penalized for that. So once the work is done and the financial aspects are over, we should be able to submit a final report and be eligible to get grants. And I think that has happened now because my final report was accepted as a final report. So hopefully I'm eligible to apply for a new grant. Yeah, so that's basically what it is. So just to end it, I'm grateful for some of the things that I was able to achieve. The extensions, I requested extensions at least twice, and they were granted. And this is important for biotechnology type projects because sometimes it's very difficult to complete them in 3 years. So that helped, and the fact that all the changes to the objectives were accommodated. So I was able to redesign this project in a way that allowed the student to, do adequate work for a PhD, and it also turned out to be suitable for the student, because if I stuck with molecular biology experiments, I feel like she wouldn't have done so well. And also there was the funding issues. So actually in the end, because these were accommodated, this project, which was in 2017 a failure, now I would say successful. So for the amount of money I was allocated, although I couldn't get it done adequately in the 3 years, given the extra time, I think the project and the funding has been successful. We have 2 papers published. The third one, which is her main paper, is now virtually ready to go. I just need to polish it up. And there are more papers that can come out from her thesis work. So I think at the end of the day, it has been a successful project, but because I got the time to do it, and I was hopefully not penalized later again. So what I realized from this is that some students develop later, because I see the difference in this student now and the quality of the work that she is producing. I think we need to give time for these students who might develop a little later. She also came direct from a BSc. She didn't have an MSc, so that might have been why she took a little time to, mature and become the kind of researcher she is now. So, and also the student may shine in a particular area, so that flexibility in the project that I was able to do also helped, because this wouldn't have come out if I had not been allowed to, change this project and include the bioinformatics work into it. It should have been a failed project. So I'm very grateful that the University Research and Development Committee and our research committee accepted those changes. That flexibility was very important, and it really helped my project. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that splendid presentation. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Nilakshi Samiranayaka to address the gathering on the problems faced by externally funded projects, the challenges. Over to you, Madam.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry about that. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, Nilakshi, we can.
Okay, okay. So I think most of the issues that Shamila mentioned for grants apply across board for any type of grant. But then when it comes to studies which are funded by external sources, there are some issues that we need to be especially aware of. And that is going to be the focus of this presentation. So what are these external sources of funding that we are referring to? They may be basically anything other than the university grants, I think, can fall into this category. And I have listed some of the common ones here. And out of these, again, the ones where the funding body is based overseas is what we are trying to focus on. Very briefly, this is the progress of the work that we are talking about. Shamila showed something similar. So there we go through a pre-award phase from the point where you think of developing the project to securing the funds. And then there are all the activities which come in once you have secured the grant. Briefly say something about the run-up to securing the grant, because I think this is just as important as what happens afterwards. Now, this is something you need to plan fairly early. So you need to find out the deadlines. These are likely to come up maybe once a year, and then your work has to start very early, months ahead. And you need to have a good strategy to put this in place. By the nature of these studies, if you're going for this kind of grant, it's likely that yours is a fairly big study with interdisciplinary involvement, with collaborators maybe based locally as well as overseas. And what this means is you are dependent on many people to put your application together. So that takes time. And then there may be other documentation such as letters of support and so on that you need to put on. So all this needs planning. And also something to remember is finally when your application is evaluated, good science is key, but then that is not the only point that is going to be looked at. So this is where identifying, getting to know, and starting to communicate with your program officer early becomes really important, because he or she can really help you to position your study in such a way so that you stand a good chance of securing the funds in line with the objectives of the funding agency. And then also you need to be aware of the timelines, as in the deadlines, as I mentioned earlier, and how you need to finally submit your application. So usually for most of these, the externally funded ones, it's likely that the process happens online. However, even though it's online, you need to find out how exactly that process is. For example, whether it has to go through the university, which most probably is the case. And if that is so, again, there may be other requirements. For instance, you may not be able to just submit your application. You may be required, it may be a requirement of the funding agency that your institution, that is the university, is registered with them before you can submit the application. So if someone has already got a grant from the same place, or there is an active grant running, well and good, your work is done. But otherwise, the owners will basically be on you to work with the university administration and make sure that these things are also in place when it comes to the time that you're ready to actually submit your application. And again, remember that itself, that registration process itself may need a bit of time, because at that time, they may need to say authenticate the information that you have provided and so on. And then they will request time there as well, say something like 14 business days before your registration is active. So all these timelines have to be borne in mind when you plan for applying for such a grant. Right, so you have done the hard work, acquired the funds, and or rather you have got your grant approved, and what happens at this point? So if I were to ask you in this kind of externally funded project, who the main stakeholders are? Is it the principal investigator and the funding body? Yes, but there is a very important third entity, that is your home institution. And you need to be aware of the requirements of the funding body as well as the university to make sure that you comply with all the requirements both these institutions have in place. So one of the first things that you will be required to do would be to enter an MOU before the funds can be transferred. And as Madam Vice Chancellor also mentioned, this becomes a long process. Ms. Himani also mentioned this. The regulations in place, we do not have anything separate for the university. What it means to us basically is we go through that same approval process as for any other large project which gets this kind of money. And so this goes through the University Grants Commission, Higher Education Ministry, Foreign Ministry, and finally Cabinet approval. And obviously, as you can envisage, this takes a lot of time. Then once your documents move beyond the faculty, the international office based at the College House will be your liaising point, because after that there is nothing much you can do individually, but it's mostly through the international office that you will be doing the following up. And you do have to follow up, maybe as frequently as every week even, to make sure that things keep moving, even though they have a relatively very well streamlined process as compared to some time ago, but you still need to follow up on your work. And so once the MOU is signed only, the funds will be transferred and an account will be set up for you to start work. So in terms of this, the time duration that it takes, another thing to be aware of is this is likely to be far more than what the funding agency is giving you, or the time period within which they expect you to get the money in and start work. So something you need to be aware of, and also remember that you may need to negotiate with them on this, as there are going to be delays most likely. And so once the money is received, again, as it was mentioned in the previous presentations, you need to have an adequate budget approved by the finance committee before you can start work. And by this time, then there will be other things. For example, if you have not by then sorted out your ethics clearance, you need to see to that and submit those documents. And then also there may be much more specific requirements. For example, the material transfer agreements, which were mentioned. Now, this is essentially a legal document. And normally in our setup, where we see these being handled, mostly is, let's say, when you have some lab work planned overseas, where you do not have the expertise here, and where you are sharing your material. So technically, the material agreement transfer agreement has to be signed before you can send your samples out. Now, usually this does not involve any finances, but unfortunately, these MTAs go through that same process of approval that the MOUs go through. So once again, it's a lot of time in your project work. So you need to plan for that and be aware of that. And then once you start the work, so there are some things which are done at the beginning. And for example, recruitment of people. So this may be research assistants, other special technical help, and so on. And again, even though the funds are from an external source, for some of the procedures like payments, you are supposed to go on with the current norms. And generally, what is accepted in the local settings, say, for example, the rates stipulated by NSF or NRC would be a good guide to go by. And you will also need a lot of administrative support. Now, for example, in this past year or so, if you look at some of the things that took place. So calling for quotations usually happen by post. But during this period, there were changes, and then email calls for quotations were accommodated. So the administration can also maybe adapt and help you, but then it will not happen just like that. You may be the one who needs to actually identify where changes need to be done, and maybe also make that request and push for it to get your thing done. And coming to another, I think an issue many of us face will be the bottlenecks in procurements. So once again, I think it's important at the outset itself to be familiar with the process so that you know where the issues come. And even though strictly you may think that it is not actually the grant holders' work, we know that there are many improvements to the system which can be made, but then looking at it proactively to think of some of the things that we can do to expedite the process, you need to be aware of what exactly goes on. So in procurements, I think there are several places where you can do this. For example, where the calling of the quotations happens, where the accounts division will prepare these letters which go out to the suppliers, and then receiving the quotation. So usually if it's a somewhat big requirement, you need to have 5 quotations, and the chances are you will not have 5 quotations. So if you follow up once the quotation request goes out and make sure that all 5 quotations are in by the deadline, it still has to come the proper way, but then you can always follow up and make sure that they do send it. That will save you time. And then once these quotations are received, the schedules have to be prepared. So this is another place where if you have the resources, maybe you can help out. And I think, well, at least maybe to get a research assistant to do maybe a little bit of this work might help you in the long run, especially in handling one of these large projects, just to make sure that you do at least whatever you can to avoid these delays. And then similarly, if you have work where it involves getting reagents and things from overseas, so this where there is no local agent and where you handle it, once again, having someone trained in it who will handle it, that is within your the research assistant pool or whatever, will save you a lot of time, because there are things like the liaising with the bank, the clearing documents, all that, which otherwise is going to take a very, very long time. And moving on from that, we heard a lot about the progress reports. So in addition to what you submit to the funding body, you also need to submit the required reports through the faculty research committee for necessary approvals. And in terms of progress, I think something else that you need to do is not just this the formal requirements, but then your internal progress evaluations also have to go on. So within the project, and then definitely when it comes to the point where you apply for another project or another grant from your track record, especially in terms of output, will be looked at. And these days, this would be mainly the publications and maybe innovative products and so on. So what this also means is that you have to start planning fairly early to have these on track with correct outputs at the correct time. And one other thing about the delays and what it can result in at the other end, when you have delays in the procurements and your work progress, it's good to find out early what exactly the funding agency requirement or the stipulation is as to what happens if you do not spend that allocated amount, let's say within at the end of every financial year. So I'm not talking about right at the end, but in between, say at the end of every year, if you have an allocation, what happens if it's not spent? So some of them will want you to return it, which is obviously a waste. So then once again, you have to be aware and look out for it. And even though if you have not spent it, at least maybe try to make sure that you show that the money is committed, basically to show that the transaction is in progress, let's say, so that you do not have to return that money. And of course, then when it comes to the closure of the grants, once again, there will be many administrative and financial requirements that you need to adhere to. So I just touched on a few administrative and financial things that you need to be aware of. But as I said at the beginning, by the nature of these projects, which are likely to be large collaborative projects, there will be other issues such as maybe related to data sharing, publication authorships, and so on, that you need to be also aware of and plan for well ahead. And then finally, the source of the documents that I mentioned. So you can look at the UGC site for some of these documents related to the MOUs. And so just to note that in the MOUs as well as the MTAs, the benefits to the institution as well as the liabilities of the institution will be something that is closely looked at when your documents go up for approval. And finally, this is the document that is there, which outlines the process that we need to follow, which I think once again will be good for all potential applicants to be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that enlightening presentation. Now, I would like to invite Professor Dilshani Dissanayake to deliver her talk on the support offered by the Research Promotion and Facilitation Center for Grant Management. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you very much, Akalanka. I think you all have heard a lot about how to manage grants, what types of grants are available. So, and also I saw on the chat box that majority felt that you needed support to obtain grants and to manage grants. So my responsibility today is to tell you the role played by the Research Promotion and Facilitation Center in supporting you to obtain and also to manage your grants. I will be quick because I think we are a little bit short of time. My talk will be mainly on why do we need to support each other in grant management, and what are the requirements in relation to the grantee or the PEI as well as the institution if we are to provide support, and how should we support and what do we do as RPFC. So I think all kind of emphasize that the responsibility of managing the grant is mainly with the principal investigator, the team leader, coordinator, depending on how the grant, specific grant, nominates you. But as all mentioned, the responsibility is also shared and it should be supported by the research group as well as institution. So why should we support the PEI and the research group? I think Professor Vajra also highlighted, because the researcher brings in funds to the institution. So you are an asset. You have brought money to the institution in the best possible way, which would enhance not you as but the institution as knowledge generating entity. So by supporting the PEI and the research group, the researcher will feel confident. The researcher will know that there's a support system. So that will enhance the skills of the researcher in relation to handling grants as well as in relation to research skills. And that will encourage researcher to apply for further funding. And also that will expose the researcher to the outside world as a funded researcher who has handled grants well. That will attract more collaborations, and also the researcher will be more confident in supervising and supporting future researchers. So that will encourage the researcher to produce new knowledge and also going for products and innovation. So that is why one reason why we need to support individuals as principal investigators or a member of a research group. And in relation to the institutional benefits, as I've told you, it's the best investment. If you're bringing in a grant, whether it's small or large, it is the best investment that you do for your institution, because it can enhance infrastructure if you bring in equipments, if you bring in whatever the material, and also you'll be enhancing human resources. You do PhDs, you supervise PhDs, MPhils, so you create more researchers, academics who can generate further knowledge and also who can take your field forward. So this is the best investment that you have done if you've got a grant for your institution. And by supporting the researcher, the credibility of the institution is enhanced, because if the grant is not handled well, it's not only the researcher who will have a bad look or penalized, but that will look bad on the institution as well. So it's important for the institution to support the researcher to handle the grant well and to achieve the outcomes. And that will also create a development-oriented and a researcher-friendly environment that we are all looking for. So I think that is a requirement by the institution, and the institution will also benefit by producing such an environment. And as all mentioned, that will contribute to institutional development. And if you're interested in ranking, that will contribute to ranking as well. So what are the requirements that we should have to obtain support or to receive support? In relation to the investigator or the research group, you should be keen to seek knowledge. Wherever you have the facility, wherever you have the opportunity, you need to go and get that knowledge. So you have to talk, you have to talk to experts, get involved in meetings, and join workshops, training workshops, join courses, which can guide you to from the development of a proposal, a grant-oriented proposal, application, to handling your grant. And also once you get the grant, and also before applying also, you need to know your commitment. It's not only adequate to get the grant, you have to know that you are committed to achieve the outcomes and also to report back to the funder as specified by the funder. So, and also how to handle the finances. You should be able to you should be familiar and should be aware your commitments in relation to finances without thinking that the institution itself will handle all the finances for you, because you need to know where you are and your setup. And also it's good for you to remember the deadlines and have a way to have some reminders set, because now we have different gadgets, instruments that you can use rather than expecting the research committee or the monitoring body to send you reminders. As Shamila mentioned, there can be deviations. There can be deviations from timelines, budget, and rather than blaming it on somebody else, good to accept, okay, there were deviations and there are reasons for those deviations, and seek support. Look for support available and obtain that support irrespective of who is providing support. If the support is there, seek support and get support. That will help you to minimize negativity. Rather than complaining, if you stand alone and if you complain with you or with yourself or with the researchers or with a small group of people, that's not going to help you. But try to work around the problem and get support and become a good funded researcher. So there are qualities of a good funded researcher, which we can discuss at another forum. So these are the requirements from a PI or the research group if we are to support or support you in obtaining and managing grants. So I think we discussed this in relation to the institution. We need a well-placed structure for research administration, well-placed policies, guidelines, templates for all these MOUs, NDAs, licensing agreements, all these, if we have them. We are developing that, and we have a majority of them in the University of Colombo, and you can access it. You can contact us or directly the University of Colombo and access these documents. So you need to be aware of the research policies, rules, regulation related to research before you embark on a project. And also we need a highly efficient structure, a unit to manage research finances. Ideally a separate unit to manage research related finances, so that the people who are handling all the finances will not be taxed, or otherwise there'll be delays which can frustrate the researchers. And also we need to have experts in the field, relevant field, with experience in handling variety of grants, so that they can support, guide and advise you if there is any. So not having experts is not a requirement if they are not actually willing to guide. So we need to have experts who are willing to guide. So institution should be aiming to produce and provide a conducive environment for funded research. So what we have to know is that it's our responsibility to make the environment conducive. We also have to work towards that. If we say the environment is not conducive, so I'm not going to apply for grants, so I'm not going to do research, that will negatively affect your development as well as the institution. So how can we support the principal investigators and the research team in managing grants? One major area that we can work on is to provide further knowledge from application to closure, and also provide financial management, support financial management, and also provide knowledge in financial management. And also, since majority of our researchers are also academics and they're involving they have other responsibilities, other commitments. Though we say you need to remember your deadlines, it's good if we can have regular reminders and also boosters to update our knowledge. And most importantly, if something goes wrong, we need to have support. And also sometimes we need counseling. If you're too frustrated and it's difficult to handle your grant and also to balance everything that you do, you need further counseling. And also sometimes we need intervention when required, because sometimes you would get into a big trouble where you would need further support, and also someone to convene between the groups and also between the administration and you to help you out of the issue. So what do we do? So we are not actually looking at financial management, and also we are not monitoring your grant, but we are also part of the research committee. Other than financial management, we support you by providing knowledge from application to closure. We also plan regular boosters. We help when you have trouble. We do counseling, and also we do interventions when required and also when requested. Initially, we actually, as a member of the research committee from the beginning, whenever I see a problem, I intervened and helped. Now we are only doing that if support is requested. So we have 7 arms in the RPFC, which you all are aware of. We do research programs, training programs, workshops, and we have an annual course running, which we call as a certificate course for postgraduate research skills. And we also support postgraduate researchers through counseling and also supporting and to obtain funds and grants, and also we discuss different areas related to research through journal clubs. And also you can see that there are other structures in which we help you to gain research collaborations and support you in developing documents related to that, and that is coordinated by Dr. Nilakshi Samaranayaka, who talked to you about collaborative research. And also we have the technology transfer office if you're going for further grants towards innovation. We help with that, and Dr. Colombo is the coordinator of that one. So we have other activities also which can support you in your grant management, but mainly through two arms, that is through training and also supporting postgraduate researcher. Those two arms are mainly focused on helping you in grant management. So what have we done? So far, we started the Research Promotion and Facilitation Center in 2013, and even our first workshop was on obtaining grants and managing grants. So those were all on-site workshops. So we regular workshops, we invited resource persons from National Science Foundation, National Research Council, Accounts Department, legal officers, and also sometimes we invited grant holders from university as well as from outside to talk to you about their experiences as we are doing during this workshop also. So what we did initially was to have workshops just after NSF and NRC calls for application, and then we go through the application step by step and help the researchers to fill it and also to prepare the budget, because initially during those days what we found was that we didn't have enough number of academics who are applying for these grants, who are confident enough to apply for these grants. So we did a lot of training on that, and some were not really clear about different stages of the application. So we did on hands-on activities, and we did training on those areas. And with time, we found that a lot of people are applying for grants, and when we sit in the research committee, we see that the grant handling is not to the level that we expected. So we did workshops on effective grant handling, we called the one efficient progress reporting, and we invited resource persons from different granting funding bodies to talk about efficient progress reporting. And also we talked about project management, mainly focusing on collaborative and multidisciplinary research. Now what we have done is to include some of these topics into the third module of the certificate course of postgraduate research, which is also coordinated by Dr. Nilakshi Samaranayaka, and the course is running now. So we discuss most of these areas through our course, and also we do regular boosters or regular workshops to support others who have not joined the course. And what we now do is, because what we noticed is that the attendance of senior researchers, the PIs, were quite limited in our on-site activities. And usually what they do is to send the junior researchers or their research students. So even for the course that we are running, we don't have many senior researchers following the course. So we incorporate training into other workshops, like mainly the statistics one, because we have a lot of participation for statistics workshop. We include grant handling to these workshops also. So the last one that we did was on site, March 2020, in which we discussed efficient grant handling with the expert resource persons. And also we provide individual clarifications, mentoring. If you have any problems, you can contact us and ask about your grant. And also we have supported, we do counseling individually, and it's confidentially, no one knows. Even in the group of RPFC, they don't know who have been supported. Only me and Professor Sela are handling these requests. And we also do interventions when required, even in a larger scale project, even with administration or with funders. Don't worry, if you're in trouble, you can talk to us and we intervene. And we always provide inputs and support to the research committee. All those who have presented today, other than Madam Vice Chancellor, members of the RPFC as well. So we have very close discussions in relation to, find out how we can help you further. So this workshop is also an outcome of that discussion. So if you need support, now whom to contact, you can write to RPFC, you can write to me, or you can call me also during weekdays. And if you're uncomfortable in contacting me, or if you find it difficult to contact me for training requirements, you can talk to Dr. Srinika. For collaborative projects, you can talk to Dr. Nilakshi Samranayaka. And for counseling and individual support, and if you want to join journal clubs, you can talk to Professor Asela Olupeliawa. So the main thing is for us to be committed, and if you need help, you need to seek support. I thank you. If you have any questions, we'll answer during the question discussion time.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that comprehensive presentation. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Christine Dasanayaka, Senior Scientific Officer, National Science Foundation, to share her expertise on effective grant management. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you very much, Ms. Akalanka. I hope you can hear me and see the screen.
Yes, we can hear you and see you. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to first thank Professor Galapathy and the Research Committee of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo, for inviting the National Science Foundation to be a part of this important workshop. So today, my topic given is effective grant management. I will talk to you a little bit about what is grant management and some general tips. Then I will move on to NSF grants specifically, and then what NSF expects out of the grantees, and some of our experiences, and some suggestions for both parties. So if we move on to what is grant management is a process of a grant, managing it throughout its entire life cycle. So the entire life cycle, when I say entire life cycle, it consists of pre-award, award, and post-award status. So today at this presentation, I will like to mostly concern or focus on the post-award status, which is implementation, monitoring, and completion of the grant. So prior to this, pre-award and award states are also very, very important, but will not be discussed today. So I think the grant management is a collaborative effort together with the grantee funding agency and other supporting personnel and institutes. So basically, it's a work of all stakeholders getting together and coming up with an excellent output. So effective grant management means ensuring that all these terms are agreed upon at the beginning and are met on time and on budget. Some general tips for effective grant management would be to read the documents prior, the award letter, starting from the award letter, the contractual agreement and the annexures. When I say all the documents, I'm talking mainly about the NSF grant documents. So we have many annexures that are relevant to carrying out your grant. And it is always good to read all these documents prior to starting your grant, and then be familiarized with the rules and regulations of the funding agency, so that you can collaborate and cooperate as and when necessary. And also to have a continuous rapport with the funder. If you are continuously in touch with the funder, the funding agency also knows how the grant is progressing, and then it won't be a big problem whenever you need to change anything in the firstly planned grant. You also have to have provisions for contingencies, and if possible, a plan B and maybe a plan C too, because you never know what will happen. Like, for instance, the current situation of COVID, nobody thought that we will be hit by this pandemic. So it's always good to have some contingency plans and plan Bs in case something like this happens, how the grant will be shifted or moved towards a new direction. Also to have your own regular updates on top of the progress that is required by the agencies, the funding agencies. It is always good to have your own regular updates and tracking of the progress to be on top of it all, and so that in any case that anybody has any questions or you need to shift immediately, it'll be always good to know where the current status is. If I move on to NSF grants specifically, we award many grants, but I think the most important for all of you and for this audience would be the competitive research grants. We also have the International Collaborative Research Program where grants are awarded, and then National Thematic Research Program, which addresses several themes, specific themes like food security and climate change and natural disasters at the moment. And also we have research program on health sciences, which award grants on health sciences, which is also important for your sector. And then we have research scholarships and postdoctoral research fellowships, research equipment grants, and COVID grants. So the COVID grants were started last year after the pandemic hit. And then we also have some other supporting grant schemes like the travel grants, the overseas special training programs, and then product development and startup grants. So all these supportive grants can be applied for and obtained as a supplement to the main grants that you would have obtained from NSF. So I would like to just highlight a few statistics from NSF. I think most of the audience, most of you would have already gotten NSF grants or hoping to apply for, and NSF is having a 52-year history. So just to highlight a few successes of ours. Only between 2017 and 2019, we have awarded in 2017, we were able to award 22 grants, competitive research grants only. And then 2018, we have a short dip in the graph. And 2019, again, we have awarded 12 grants. So, and the number of scientists benefited way higher than the number of grants, because the principal investigators and the co-investigators and also the technicians or the collaborators are also included. So they are all benefiting from these research grants that are being awarded. And also when you come to the knowledge dissemination, foreign publications, local publications, and communications are considered. So from these grants, there are many number of dissemination has been done. If you come to the patents received, we have in 2017, 18, and 19, we have consecutively awarded 2, 1, and 4 number of patents have been filed. These are all coming from these grants that have been awarded. So the credit goes, all the credit goes to all of you who have been doing the grants well and achieving all of these successes. A little bit about the NSF research grant, the competitive research grants, the procedure of the grant. So like I said before, there's a pre-award status and the award status and the post-award status. So if I start from the award status, once the grant is awarded to a researcher, the immediately next thing to happen would be the funds disbursement. So this, as you all know, this sometimes take a little time, and there are certain delays because we are totally depending on the treasury funds, and then depending on the time that we get the funds, only we will be able to disperse it and allocate it to all of the grantees. So this sometimes take a little time. After the funds are disbursed, comes the monitoring stage or the monitoring period of the grant, where we require the grantees to submit progress and financial reports. So this will be requested or required to be submitted to us every 6 months, and on by the 15th of June and 15th of December of every year, so biannually. And then the progress review seminars also we we are trying our best to hold at least 2 progress review seminars per grantee per year. And then we also conduct field visits to see on the field how the grant is progressing, and if there are any questions or problems that you are undergoing, to support those as well. After the monitoring period comes at the end of the grant period, we require you to submit a final report and a final financial report. So all of these report submissions have to go through the proper format that is provided by NSF, and also through the channels, the proper channels, like you need the approval from the head of the department, and then the vice chancellor, and so on. So the financial reports also need to be certified by the BERSA. All these requirements and the rules and regulations are given to you in the agreement that is signed at the very beginning of the award of the grant. So once this final report and the final financial report is received by NSF, we review the reports and then evaluate them, and by an external reviewer and evaluator, and then the final report is would be accepted as satisfactory or otherwise. Expectations of NSF, if I briefly run through some of the expectations regarding funds, utilizing funds according to the proposed budget. Like at the beginning, when you submit the application, you will be providing us with a detailed and explanatory budget. So it is expected that you will follow the funds or the expenditure according to the proposed the submitted and approved budget. Because otherwise, if it is deviating, there are major deviations from the proposed budget, it will be very difficult for us to release the next installment. Like if you have more balance left in your budget, once the time comes for the next installment, it is difficult for us to transfer funds because there are already funds in your account. And then submitting invoices, bills for votes on reimbursement basis. For example, the postgraduate registration fee of your research assistant. This vote is funded by reimbursement basis. So you need to submit the invoices. The student needs to pay by herself, him or herself, and then need to submit the invoices for us to send the funds. And then it will be on a reimbursement basis that you would be able to claim it. And then reporting, like I said before, we are expecting you to submit the reports on time according to the formats and through the proper channels, and also to follow the Gantt chart and the KPIs that will be given in the beginning. In your proposal, in your application, you will be giving us a Gantt chart and a KPI and KPIs. So this will be evaluated when we get your progress reports. We are going to match them with the previous Gantt chart and the KPIs, and then see how the progress of the grant is. And then request for fund transfer between rows, extensions, additional funding, and any deviations in the proposal. I think we would have already informed the ongoing grantees. And also, when we award a grant in the first place, we will be informing them of the rules and regulations on such requests. They need to be submitted to NSF well in advance. As soon as you think that you need to have any deviations, or you need an extension, or you need extra funds. So as soon as the problem arises, it is best to keep us informed and request for the request that you need. And also, according to the procedure, again through the proper channels, we are very strictly going through that, and it needs to come through proper channels, otherwise it will not be accommodated. And NSF, certain requests, like if you need an extension with additional funding, let's say, that needs to get the approval of the NSF Board of Management. So this, as you can understand, will take a longer period of time than any other small request like request for fund transfer between boards. That also needs to get the approval of the Director General. So these things take a little bit of time. So it's always good to request for anything that you need well in advance and according to the formats. So some of our experience from handling research grants that sometimes we see that there is no proper planning of the project and the budget, because sometimes from certain grantees we tend to get many extension requests and many requests for fund transfers between boards. So it is like I said before, it takes a lot of time to formulate and process these requests, as well as the time will be cost from your research grant time that you will be able to spend on your research. And also you need to give like major justification, like detailed justification as to why you are requesting these extensions of fund transfers, and that is also very problematic if it is not properly planned at the beginning. Also, we are getting many audit queries on the progress and financial monitoring side, because most of the reports, sometimes the reports does not come according to the format of the NSF, and then there are no signatures, and the financial report from the BESA, there are certain errors. So things like that, then we need to send it back to you, and then you need to go back and get the proper reports, and these all cost a lot of time, which is kind of a waste of time that have been used in a better and productive way. So it is always best to go through the guidelines, as I said before, and see what is requested or required by the funding agency, and the report formats are given, so it is not so difficult to follow the format and fill up the progress. Successfully and timely completion of the project is also important. Like I said before, you have to plan for contingencies and have a plan B, but as best as you can, just try to make it happen within the given period of time, and then it will be added to your profile too. The researchers or the grantees profile, it will be added, and you have additional advantages of on-time submission of reports and completing grants like sustained awards and things like that. So it is always good to complete on time. And taking a long time to submit reports, again, like I said, and returning balance funds. So we see that like one of the speakers mentioned before, it is not okay to have a huge balance left at the end of the grant, because that shows that you have not properly planned the project or the budget. And also we require that you return any balance that is left from your grant immediately. So once as soon as the grant period is over, you need to return the balance through the accountant to the NSF. So we see that this also needs a lot of reminding, and which is not okay. And NSF, since NSF, like I said, is totally depending on treasury funds, we are answerable to the treasury on outputs, outcomes of the project. So it is always good to highlight the socioeconomic impact and the scientific impact in your project from the very beginning, from the start of the KPIs, the key performance indicators. It is always good to focus on these outputs as well, in order for you to maybe obtain the grants later on. A few suggestions. aligning with right now the National Science Foundation, as you would most probably know, most of the grants or most or all of the grants are on hold because of the current situation in the country and the funding situation. But we are relooking at the grant schemes that we already have, and we are trying to align them with the current priorities, current national priorities, and also trying to look at different other schemes or ways of supporting all of the researchers in a pandemic situation. So currently, it will be good for all of you too, who are hoping to apply for NSF research grants, to think of titles and topics and try to formulate your research in par with, to be in par with the vistas of prosperity and splendor and the national priorities, because we are going to give prominence to these aspects when we call for applications very soon. And then application-based or technology or product-driven research is also considered as a high priority. Not that basic sciences are not important, or we are not going to totally scrap it out or anything like that, but a little bit of high priority will be given to application-based research. And then impact-oriented scientifically, economically, and socially. Like I said, if you can show in your KPIs and then finally in your outputs how your research has impacted mainly the economical and social aspects of the country, as well as the scientific aspects, that will be highly recognized. And also, just a suggestion, if you are already not using, to get the help and support you need from apps or applications or software like Microsoft Office Project, and then there are other grant management software too, which would enable you to monitor and progress with your grant with less trouble. And then so that you can use most of your time for the research work, and the application or the software will take care of looking after your progress. So it is always good to use such applications and get the maximum support you can. And also we are very helpful. We are always ready to help you. So any time of the day, just give us a call and be in a good rapport with us, and we are always ready to help you with any of the problems you have. Like I said before, it is better if you try to avoid underspending, because most of the time what we see is the budget goes over expenditure, but some grantees we see that it is very underspent. So that is not good for your reputation or your profile too, to plan on a certain budget to over budget actually, and then to have a huge balance at the end of the grant. And if you follow all these requirements and the requests, and effective grant management will naturally happen, and that will help you avoid frustration and meet reporting requirements and improve the grant process. And of course, when you are left with more time to focus on your research, that is always good. And avoid complications and penalties. So we do tend to, if many times a grantee has had problems, we tend to blacklist them too. So in order to avoid all of these complications and unavoidable or situations, it is always good to follow the given guidelines and the formats. So we'll always be we are always here to help you. So just anytime, any problem you have, you may discuss with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that very informative presentation. The next talk we have lined up is on the expectation of funding bodies. And this will be delivered by Mr. Nonis Sampath of the National Research Council. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, all. First, I would like to thank the chairperson and all the members of the research committee of University of Colombo Faculty of Medicine. My topic is expectations of funding bodies, and I'm from NRC, National Research Council. Here, when we talk about expectations of funding bodies, it depends on two facts. These expectations depend on the funding source of the funding body and type of funding program. When we talk about funding source, there may be the government, that is treasury funds, there may be private sector, and there may be other sources. As the NRC is more focused on the government funds, I'm here talking about on the government funds. And we are responsible for taxpayers' money. And the government needs to obtain maximum output from funds. The government introduced general objectives to funding bodies like us time to time. For an example, they request us to adhere to following when funding research. Currently, we have United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor, රට හතන සෞභාග්‍ය දැක්ම, and National Research and Development Framework. We are requested to adhere to following that programs. Then, type of funding program. Different funding bodies have more than one different funding programs. For an example, National Research Council currently having 4 programs, each program having specific objective. Let us have a brief look at that. Investigator-driven grants. Objective is creation of new knowledge. Public-private partnership. Objective is commercialized product, process, or technology. Target-oriented multidisciplinary research grants. Their objective is scientific solution to a national burning issue. The latest one is rapid grants for quick scientific interventions to timely needs. Then we move to types of expectations of funding bodies. There are 2 types, operational and outputs related. Operational type of expectations have 2 subcategories, physical progress and financial progress. Outputs related expectations have 3 subcategories. The first one is quality output. Second, capacity building. And the third, research impact on the society. Then we move to the section 1, physical progress. There, grant is meeting all objectives of the project in a timely manner as promised in the proposal work plan. Here, I would like to share the format of the work plan, which is available in NRC research proposal format. There, we have objectives, activity, timeline, and the KPIs. The applicant has to fill these, and if the grant is selected for funding, the grantee has to meet all these objectives and activities in the given timeline as promised. Then, grantee timely report in the interim progress of the project using the formats given by the institute. It's also another expectation of us. For an example, we request interim progress reports in different intervals from different programs. Then, another most important thing, as the NSF representative stated, the grantee timely finishing the project and submitting the project's final report using the format given by the institute. Then we will move to the financial progress. There, our first thing is, our first expectation is grantee adherent to national procurement guidelines. Then we expect the grantee adhering to grant operational guidelines stipulated by the funding institute. For an example, NRC has a guideline for each grant program. We have several guidelines, a set of guidelines the grantee should adhere. Example, that the grantee should procure all major equipment of the grant within the first 9 months of the project. It's an example for that guideline. There are more, and the grantees adhering to that guidelines is an expectation of the funding body. Then grantee timely utilizing the project funds and procuring all the items stated in the research proposal. This is important because we do not entertain idling of funds in the project accounts. We need to utilize them for research for the stated purpose. Then under the financial progress, as funding bodies, we have two more expectations. One is funding institute timely inventory the project's equipment until the end of project. The second one, funding institute properly transferring the project's equipment to the respective university or R&D institute at the end of the project. This happens only when the project is ended as a success. Then we will move to quality output. The first and foremost thing is creation of new knowledge. To create new knowledge, you have to do research, and it has to produce data and results. If this data and results are validated, you can send them to publications, or you can present them in index conferences. Most of the time, the funding bodies prefer the publications or conferences to be index journals or index conferences. From that, both publications are most important. In NRC, publications is considered as a must. You may have publications in non-index journals and presentations in non-index conferences, but funding bodies like them to be present in index journals or index conferences. What is this index journal or conferences? An index journal means that journal has gone through and passed review process of certain requirements done by a journal indexer. An indexer should be one who is trusted and reputable in doing such a job in a global scale. Different funding bodies follow different indexes. For an example, NRC follows Science Citation Index Impact Factor and Simago Journal Ranking of Scopus. Then, when we speak deeper on the publications, we expect your research findings to be published in a journal with science citation impact factor equal or more than 1, or we expect your findings to be published in a journal with Simago journal ranking equal or more than 0.5. This is considered as gold standard according to NRC regarding the publications. In fact, SCI impact factor is used as a proxy for relative importance of journal within its field. Simago journal ranking is a publicly available portal that includes that is used to assess and analyze scientific domains, where journals can be compared or analyzed separately. There are 27 major thematic areas and 313 subject categories. From that, we can assess and analyze. Hereby, I would like to share the user interface of the SIMAGO journal ranking along with the website. Then we will move to the tangible outputs. What are these tangible outputs? This is another important expectation. It may be a new product, process, or technology. When we talk about private-public partnership grants, this is a must. New product, process, or technology has to be developed by the researcher. And there may be physical reference collections. For an example, a strain of bacteria. Then we can expect intellectual property from grant. This is not a must, but good to have. It may be a patent, industrial design, or software covered by copyrights. Or we expect knowledge dissemination through books or books chapters, or you can publish your findings in newspaper articles to make the public aware of your research and its findings. Then we have capacity building. The first one is providing research infrastructure to universities and R&D institutes. Here, under this program, under this expectation, we provide funds to major equipment, minor equipment, consumables, travel costs, and publication fees. Then, in the second type of capacity building is human resource capacity building, one of the most important capacity building type. Here, we fund for, we expect postgraduate research assistantships leading to MPhil or PhD that will contribute to national science and technology workforce. As an evidence, we collect MPhil or PhD degree certificate and copy of the research thesis when the project is ended. We expect that. Then impact on the society. Research may contribute to new policies, recommendations, or circulars. Data or information obtained from research can be used in national policy or decision-making process. It has direct impact on the society and is one of long-term expectations a funding body could achieve. For an example, I would like to bring out an example of the project of Dr. Manjula Hettiarachchi, who is from Faculty of Medicine, University of Ruhuna. His research title was Establishment of National Neonatal Screening Center for Congenital Hypothyroidism and to assess the predictors of newborn screening behavior of Sri Lankan mothers. There are about 300 births in Sri Lanka per year. Babies born with congenital hypothyroidism results in mental and physical retardation. It is from the research they have found that in Sri Lanka, the research is done in southern province. They found that the ratio is 1 to 1,500. The baby ratio for congenital hypothyroidism to normal is 1 to 1,500, where in the world that ratio is 1 to 3,000. That means our rate of neonatal congenital hypothyroidism is high. Then this researcher suggested, this researcher produced his findings to the health findings to the Department of Health, and this led to National Newborn Screening Program. National Newborn Screening Program for congenital hypothyroidism by the Health Ministry. Approximately 200 babies detected annually. They will be treated for congenital hypothyroidism, then they will be normal children. This is a big saving to the nation because they will be saved from being victims of congenital hypothyroidism. Then I would like to share the leaflet with you and the instructions issued by Director General of Health Services regarding the newborn screening program. This was issued in 2015. Then I would like to bring your attention to impact on society, another type. We expect solutions to national burning issues or timely issues. For an example, we funded a grant titled Comprehensive Study on Chronic Kidney Disease of Uncertain Etiology. There, the solution we expected was to find out the root cause of this chronic kidney disease of uncertain etiology. The findings suggest that hard water and fluoride is the root cause. Then we funded another project titled Development of a Model Treatment Facility for Remediation of Total Dissolved Solids and Fluoride in Groundwater, a sustainable solution for dry zone drinking water problems. Our expectation is this sustainable solution. The research is working on that. Hopefully, we will have the ability to provide good drinking water to the rural areas with this after the implementation of this project. Then we funded another project to make an app, contract tracing, mobile-based contract tracing app and tracking mobile application called Swaraksha. It is created by a member of the faculty, senior researcher of the University of Colombo Faculty of Science, and there are some implementation issues, but the app is ready and we are ready to implement it if the authorities accept it. Then I'm done with the presentation. I would like to summarize the facts as given below, and there are most operational and output related expectations we have as a funding body, and I would like to thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, sir, for that excellent presentation. We are almost at the end of this workshop, but before we conclude, we would like to open for any questions from the audience. And I would like to invite Professor Priyadarshini Kalapathy, Chairperson, Research Committee, to moderate the discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Akalanka. Yes, and I wish to thank all of you, particularly all the presenters, for giving comprehensive coverage of the topics that they presented on. And now we can go into the discussion. I will first take the questions that has been sent via the chat forum. Some have been answered already, but I think it's good to take up. We are a little bit behind time, but I think we'll answer these because these are relevant to most of the researchers. So regarding this publication cost, which is reimbursed by the university, there was a question asked on whether there is a form and so on. So the Mrs. Himani Rajpaksha has circulated via the chat forum the university circular for that, and so I think according to the circular, according to those guidelines, you can submit your applications. Then yes, there were some things Professor Mangala asked about the type of journal. So it need not be linked to a already ongoing grant. You can request for any publication outside the grant that you are having. And there's no, we do not know of whether there is any maximum ceiling. Yes, we hope to, another thing that I would like to inform is that we hope to have develop a booklet from the research committee informing all the research grant holders of the various circulars available and informing about grant progress report and final report submissions, reallocation of funding and request for extension, all the information. And there was a suggestion to include all these questions asked here as a frequently asked questions. We'll try to do that. And also there was a request to have for the presentations to be made available. So we will request each and every presenter here, and with their consent, we'll try to do that. Yeah. So there was a question. I'm now going to some other questions, particularly directed to the senior assistant Bursa by Professor Manoj. How quickly can we obtain an advance when a complete application is made to the SAB? Can you provide a time duration from receiving an application to be available at the shop counter? Ms. Himani Rajapaksha, are you there? Can you please address that question?
Yes, actually, at least 3 days prior to the requirement of advance.
Sorry, your voice is not well heard. Can you please? Yeah. Yeah.
At least 3 days prior to the requirement, voucher should submit to the finance branch, and before 1 day prior to the requirement, advance will be available at the soft counter. If need more than that, I mean there were 2-3 days prior to the advance requirement, need the clarification for that purpose.
So do you mean to say that if we submit a request just 3 days prior to the event, you can get the
1 day prior? Yes, 1 day prior to that we can provide the advance from the shop counter. But we have to receive the voucher to make advance 3 days, at least 3 days prior to the date of the advance request.
Yeah. But the thing is, the request actually has to go through the dean, and you mean to say that it should reach the
yes,
the finance branch at least 3 days prior to the event.
Yes.
Okay, right. So that means the applicant has to submit well in advance to go through the dean, and then come to the finance branch at least 3 days prior.
Yes.
Yeah, and these days are online, I mean, email request accepted, Himani?
The thing is, we can accept, but we need the hard copies.
Hard copies are required, no, here, because you need to, the voucher has to be filled.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, right. Thanks. I think that answers your question, Manoj. Then there is a question from Sharmila, Professor Sharmila Jayasena. Should all items, including consumables, be entered into departmental inventory, or can grantees maintain a separate book as an inventory?
Yes, actually we requested to do so. For research grants, we have to have a separate consumable inventory, as well as for the treasury, separate inventory, but can use the same chemical code for those.
Right. So that means the grantee can maintain a separate one. No, it has to be
separate one, madam. Separate one. We have to maintain a separate one.
Separate one. The grant.
Can I just come in? What I'm asking is, can we just write it in a CR book?
Yes.
And keep? Is that acceptable?
Yes, can with the chemical code and the in and out and the balance.
Okay, so it's all right for us to just have it in a CR book.
Yes.
Okay. But for equipment, it has to.
Equipment, if we enter to the department FAR, so we have to use the same. Actually, it's depend on the requirement of the donor agency. As I mentioned earlier, some request you to keep separate, and after the grant period, they ask to get those things to our records. So it depends on. If so, you have to keep separate a fixed asset register. If the same time you are entering to the the department, we can do the at the purchase time.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's clear. Then again by Professor Mangala, when EPF contribution is not included into the finance committee approved budget, and this component cannot be requested from the funding agency, that is when it comes to international funding agencies, who is going to bear this university component when the grant money is not adequate to accommodate this new component? How to solve this problem?
Actually, EPF, ETF payment is statutory law. Government, it's a labor law. We have to adhere to that. So when actually I have to request, when budgeting for personal payments, we have to budget with the EPF and ETF. We have to use the fund allocation. If something, anything we cannot go ahead with the allocation, we have to get approval to utilize any other fund.
Okay, so during the submission of the grant application, when it involves research assistance, the EPF, ETF payment has to be included into the salary that you are quoting. That's what you are saying.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I hope that answers your question, Mangala. Then Dr. Samira Gunawardhan is asking, when approving payment vouchers, the new circular number 74 states that SAB can approve up to 50,000, but these vouchers still need to go through head through dean. Is this necessary?
Yes, I am not approving any because I am certifying officer at the faculty. So approval should come through the heads and dean.
Yeah, I think that's very clear. Yes, so with the approval can be granted by the head and the dean, and then yes, so
even a register, a DR or the AR can approve within their limits.
Within the limit. Is that also 50,000, Himani?
No, it depends, madam, with the procurement or the other payments. It's in there, the 74 circular.
Circular. Would you mind sharing that circular with everybody, please?
Now, I don't have now. Wait,
no, later.
Okay.
It's all right. Later, send it to us, and then we will upload it into the research. Yes, Samir, I think you want some clarification first.
Sorry, I just wondered whether now the circular states that there are these limitations in terms of the approvals, and even to the previous question of the research advance. Now, again, research advance also can be approved up to 15,000, I think, by the SAB according to that circular. So the whole point, I think, of this circular is to sort of minimize the delay in terms of sending the document through dean and so on. So I was just wondering whether that the circular then becomes sort of really ineffective if still all the documents have to go through that whole process.
So delegation is given for some extent, but as a certifying officer in the faculty, I can't do both, the approval and the certification.
So I believe these are financial regulations, Samira, that we have to adhere to.
So in other case, when we are in the college house, actually we are in the some payments we are approving. Actually, we are approving some cases, but I'm not certifying that. Some other SAB is certifying for that I can approve.
Right. Thanks.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Then I think the question regarding publication that we have addressed satisfactorily, and she has circulated the circular also, uploaded circular. Yeah. So this regarding, I think again, Professor Mangala has asked that there is a journal which is requiring $2,000 as publication fee. Actually, one thing which I also found recently, again, we were trying to submit an article to a high impact journal, and there was a publication charge of about 3,000 rupees, and we were going to get sort of discouraged. But anyway, we submitted, and later on what we found was that $3,000 actually was for to make the article open access. Otherwise, for review of the review, they accepted to review, and there were review comments sent and all that. So, and now the article is published. And we didn't have to pay anything for that. But it is to make it open access that we have to pay $3,000. So obviously we don't need to make it we don't have funding and we don't have to make it open access. But the journal published it. So this is one of Dr. Danusha's coming from her PhD work. We published. So that's now published in a American journal, and so we didn't have to pay. The payment was to make it open access. So I think you can verify that from the website. Then this question.
Priyadashini,
Yes.
If I may add to that,
Yeah.
Most journals have that to make it immediately open access. They charge a high fee.
Yeah.
However, after a certain period, say after 6 months or something like that, it becomes open access anyway. So
Yeah.
I don't think researchers should worry too much about it if they don't have available funds for such like categories, under such categories.
Yes, thank you very much, Nadira. Yes, for that comment. Yes. So yeah, when you see that big, charge, you get discouraged. But I think you have to, you can go through and see exactly, how much is, whether there is there is a charge for peer review, the review of the article, and so there are very good journals actually who don't charge at all, but it's to make the article open access. When then the citations will go up, but I mean, if you don't have funding, you can just publish. You don't need to make it open access. Okay. Then there was this comment about making the Senate awards. I think that these are being reviewed, so probably new criteria will come up with the review process. Then yes, next one. Yes, in a circular. I think now there are some very good questions directed to NRC and NSF resource persons. NRC/NSF, can we request for stipend for PhD or MPhil student outside of a request for grant, where we have funding for research but no payment for personnel is provided in the grant? Would either Miss Christine, maybe both of you can respond, because the whatever that is adopted may be different in NSF and NRC. Miss Christine, you want to respond to that question, please?
Yes, madam. I already typed it also. There's a scheme called the NSF Research Scholarship Scheme, where the research student can apply himself or herself, and then that takes care of the stipend as well as a certain amount of research expenses.
Okay, right, that's good. And it's those are awarded even now under the fund constraint situation that
no, madam, that is also on hold.
On hold at the moment, no? Yes. Right, okay. Mr. Sampantonis, what about the NRC situation pertaining to payment for research assistance?
Actually, madam, we fund as a package. Okay. In this package, research grant package, there are maybe major or minor equipment, consumables, and student stipend or the staff allowance is a part of that package. Okay. We currently do not fund separately for stipend and allowances.
Right. So it should be included into the total grant.
Total grant package.
Package. Okay. Right. Thank you. So when would the NRC grants going to be advertised next?
We are having shortage of funds. Okay. I cannot give an exact date. Right. We will advertise for funds. Advertise for grants when funds become available as soon as possible.
Okay, right. At the moment, you have no funds, am I right?
Yes, we have got some small amount of funds. It's right. Dedicated for a separate program. It's already a grant program, but we will advertise it soon, but not the common investigator-driven grant program.
Okay.
It is we are given our funds as votes. In this vote, there are investigator-driven grants funds have been over. It's empty now.
Okay.
Therefore, we have to take some time to advertise again because we do not have funds for that program. We are having some small amount of funds for another vote.
Right.
That's what I have to give the message I have to give to you.
Okay, right. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's clear.
Madam Priyadarshini, may I ask a question?
Yes, Nisha. Yeah.
What
Yes.
about the investigator-driven grants which were awarded in 2020? Will they be given funds before it's advertised again?
Are you asking about NSF, NRC?
No, yes, NRC from Mr. Nonis, just for an update.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, Dr. Rockwood, the council had made a decision to fund them for before advertising for next round of ID grants, and they have requested to give priority for that projects pending from 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Nonis.
Yes.
Okay, right. Thank you. And I think again regarding both NSF and NRC also provide funding to support publications. So again, can we know whether there is a ceiling for that? How much, like the university has $500 US. So like that, is there a ceiling for the NSF and NRC and what are the criteria that you apply in evaluating such requests? Yes, first, Ms. Christine, please. Yeah.
Madam, as far as I know, there's no ceiling for NSF publication grants, but right now that is also on hold.
On hold, right. Okay. So again, outside any of your grants, any researcher can apply for applications to fund the publications?
Yes, exactly. It goes as a separate scheme.
Separate scheme. Okay, right. Thank you. And what about the NRC, Mr. Nonis?
Madam, we have no separate scheme.
Yeah.
It is publication fees also given as a package item of the grant, total grant.
Okay.
The ceiling is 250,000 rupees.
Sorry, 250,000.
250,000
is the maximum.
Maximum.
Okay, right. Thank you. And but that has to be within the total grant that you have applied.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Then thank you. Then there is Dr. Sharmila. Just the thought to share some info. I chose no to open access choice and therefore did not pay for the publication, Springer Nature. However, once it was published, I was sent a link to the article from the publishers and encouraged to disseminate on social media. The link gives access to full article but cannot be downloaded. A pleasant surprise. Yes. Okay, good. Yeah. So that's what we encounter. So we can publish and then they will actually request you to disseminate because then that their citations will go up and the researcher is expected to disseminate it in your own circles. So that will encourage the citations. Okay, then Dr. Mangala has thanked. Then Shamini, can I please chip in a question? I have had some issues with the purchase of some low-cost items, less than 1,000 rupees, both for equipment and consumables, as suppliers do not quote for these. How can we overcome this problem? Ms. Himani, can you address that question, please? Answer that question.
Could you please explain, madam?
Yeah, she's asking now if there are some low cost items like costing less than 100,000 rupees, both either for equipment or small type one and also for consumables, where suppliers are not, are not submitting any quotations for these. Then how can you overcome this problem? Can this, one of these advances be made use of for this purpose? Cash advance.
No, if such they can get the quotation. Why actually we have to sort why they are not sending the quotation.
Right. Maybe for very small, when it is for such a small amount, they are not happy to give a quotation. I believe. Yeah.
Yes, it's better to have a quotation. Some are giving actually. And also we can get cash advance, but for that also, if it is more than 5,000 rupees,
Yeah.
We have to get quotations. If it is 15,000 more than, we have to get 3 quotations.
Right. So up to 15,000, just with one quotation, you can
Is
fetch
enough.
it.
Yes, enough. And we
Right.
have to justify the why we are getting one quotation, and the strong justification is needed. So you can get an advance up to 15,000 from the dean's approval. But
If the sole agent,
yes.
Sole agent, one quotation is enough, no?
Yes, sole agent is one quotation is enough, but justification should be given.
Okay, right. Thank you. Yes, sir. Sharmi, does that answer your question, or do you want any clarification?
No, it's okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, we can work with her and see how it can be moved forward. Thank you.
Yes, I see Taranga, you have raised your hand. What's your question, please?
Yes, thank you, Prof. Kalampati. This workshop is very useful. Thank you very much for organizing it. My question is actually some foreign funding agencies might allow the researcher to keep the remaining funds if the researcher has, delivered to the expectations of the funding agency. So in this university system, is there a way for a researcher to keep that pot of money to substitute for other research that is being carrying on in the university? Like how can that remaining money be allocated for to substitute for maybe other ongoing research, or like for a new pilot study or something like that? Because in other countries, researchers are allowed to keep a pot of money for research.
Again, Ms. Himani, can you answer that question? Himani?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, for the we have to place to the approval for the finance committee for such backdated payments.
I think it's not regarding backdated payments. That is, if there is some balance money remaining,
all right,
whether that balance money can be utilized for subsequent. Is that what you are asking, Taranga?
Yes, whether the researcher be allowed to maintain a ledger account, let's say a ledger account for research purpose only.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I believe that is possible, but you may have to submit again another budget for that and get the finance committee approval, and with that probably it's possible. I think SAB
yes.
Can answer that question. Yeah.
Yes, madam. We have to get a revised budget approval from the finance committee. Yeah.
So I believe, Taranga, you may have to submit now for that whatever the balance money, again submit a budget proposal, get it approved by the finance committee, and then I think that can be used for another project. That's what I understand.
Okay. It's for another project, not the same project.
Not the same project.
Yeah, that's what she's asking.
Yes.
So that now the project is over, but there is a balance amount remaining. So let's say maybe if in a big grant, it may be like 200,000 or 500,000 remaining. And if the granting body is happy to give that money to the university, whether we can utilize it for another project.
Yes, can. Yes, can. As submitting the separate budget for that, we can.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. I think we have, exhausted all the questions that are there. Are there any other questions that anyone wants to ask, or is there anything that I have missed out from this long list of questions? Okay, there doesn't seem to be any further questions. So I think we have had a very productive workshop, and I would thank particularly Ms. Christine and Mr. Sampath Nonis from the NSF and NRC. But I would hand over to Dr. Colombo Singha, the secretary of the research committee, and I will actually thank her. She did a lot of work behind the scenes to organize this workshop. And I think although we were initially planning to have it on site to make it more effective, I don't think we lost out on anything because we did it online, because there was good discussion, questions were asked, and I think we were able to address all that. I would like to thank all presenters as well as Dr. Colombo Singha, but I would, because she will not be thanking herself, and I would like to invite her to give the formal vote of thanks. Thank you. It's over to you, Callum.
Thank you, Madam. I would like to invite Dr. Callum Singha to formally deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Madam. Good afternoon. Professor Chandrika Vijayaratna, Vice Chancellor, University of Colombo, Professor Vajra Dissanayaka, Dean, Faculty of Medicine, senior professors, and my dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Chandrika Vijayaratna, Vice Chancellor, University of Colombo, for your presence this morning despite your busy schedule. Thank you, Madam, for your thought-provoking address. My sincere thanks goes to Professor Vajra Dissanayaka, Dean, Faculty of Medicine, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. Thank you, sir, for your support and guidance. I would like to thank Professor Priyadarshini Galapathy, Chairperson, Research Committee, and the committee members for the support in organizing this workshop. The hearty vote of thanks goes to all the speakers for their excellent presentations, making this workshop a success. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Mr. Kalpa Pereira, Ms. Akalanka De Silva, and Ms. Malkanthi Fernando for their support in making this an effective virtual workshop. Last but not least, I would like to thank all of you for participating in this workshop despite your busy schedules. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Madam. We hope that through this workshop, we were able to address many of the issues faced by grant holders and that it was fruitful to all. Thank you very much for your participation. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.